Hello viewers, as you are already aware that we do in-depth research on the important issues happening around the world. Therefore, to continue with our in-depth reports and to enhance your information and knowledge, we have some important observations on US-Iran war. Friends, we would like to bring your attention on the consequences that if the Iranian IRGC autocratic regime of Khomeini survives this war intact, the Gulf states will face big permanent danger in its future. See friends, as it's very important topic not only for the people living in entire Middle East, but it will also have its big impact on the entire world economy. Therefore, we request you to watch, listen and understand this report up to the end. And also subscribe to channel to get more in-depth reports and analysis, which you do not get on other media. Also friends, we would like to inform to the governments ruling United States and its allies in Middle East, especially Israel, and other Gulf states, including UAE, to understand our report and analyze that how much it's important for them to wash out entire Khomeini-led IRGC from Iran, not only for their own future benefit but also for the future of the people of Iran, who are living under the tyranny of Khomeini's IRGC. Friends, please understand, the Islamic Republic of Iran, under its IRGC-dominated leadership, must not emerge from the 2026 war with the United States and its allies as a coherent, capable actor. Survival without decisive degradation of its core coercive tools would constitute a strategic disaster for Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and Oman and Israel. This is not speculation. It is the clear lesson of the past 5 months of missile barrages, drone swarms, and the weaponization of the Strait of Hormuz. Friends, as you already know, Iran has already demonstrated what a surviving regime means for the Gulf. When American and Israeli strikes began in late February 2026 and killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, Tehran did not collapse into paralysis. It redirected the overwhelming majority of its retaliatory fire at the Gulf states. Thousands of missiles and drones targeted energy facilities, desalination plants, ports, military installations hosting American forces, and civilian areas. The UAE absorbed particularly intense volleys. Bahrain, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia suffered direct hits. Qatar and Oman were not spared the consequences. Iran treated the 6 GCC members as the primary soft target, easier to strike than Israel's hardened defenses and more effective for imposing economic and political pain on the United States regional partners. Friends, as we can observe, the Strait of Hormuz became Iran's most potent weapon. By threatening, mining, harassing, and intermittently closing this choke point, Tehran inflicted immediate, measurable damage on Gulf economies that depend on secure energy exports. Shipping froze. Insurance premiums exploded. Oil and gas revenues took hits. Alternative pipelines and ports were activated in desperation. What had long been a theoretical contingency in war games became operational reality. A regime that survives this conflict will remember that lesson permanently. It will treat Hormuz not as a shared international waterway but as leverage to deter future pressure, extract concessions, or punish Gulf states for hosting American forces or aligning with Washington and Jerusalem. Therefore, friends, a surviving IRGC-led system will be more dangerous, not less. Power has shifted further toward the security apparatus after Khamenei's death. Mojtaba Khamenei's elevation has not restored clerical dominance. Real authority rests with Revolutionary Guard commanders and the hardline security elite. This is a regime organized around survival, repression, and revenge. It has already shown willingness to strike Gulf civilian infrastructure when cornered. Leave it standing with residual missile stocks, drone production capacity, and the ability to reconstitute both. and the Gulf faces an indefinite threat environment. Every future crisis, nuclear negotiations, proxy activity, domestic Iranian unrest, will carry the risk of renewed missile and drone attacks on Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, Manama, or Kuwait City. See Friends, nuclear reconstitution adds an existential layer. If Tehran retains or rebuilds a pathway to nuclear weapons capability after this war, Saudi Arabia has repeatedly signaled it will not remain passive. An Iranian nuclear threshold state next door would accelerate proliferation decisions across the peninsula. The resulting arms race would be unstable, expensive, and irreversible. Gulf states cannot outsource this risk to American assurances that have already proven imperfect under the pressure of actual combat. Friends, you should also understand that proxy networks, though damaged, will not vanish overnight. Hezbollah has been degraded, Iraqi militias have taken losses, and the Houthis have absorbed punishment. Yet a surviving Iranian regime will prioritize rebuilding forward deterrence. Even a reduced proxy architecture retains the capacity for deniable attacks, political subversion, and pressure on Gulf internal security, particularly in Bahrain with its demographic realities and in other states with significant Shiite populations or Iranian expatriate communities. Friends, you can record our statement. The economic and reputational costs of a surviving Iran are structural. Gulf development models rest on the premise of stability, investor confidence, and reliable energy export routes. A regime that has proven it can close Hormuz and rain missiles on critical infrastructure permanently reprices that risk. Sovereign borrowing costs carry a conflict premium. Insurance floors do not return to pre-war levels. Tourism, logistics hubs, and long-term foreign direct investment suffer. The UAE's push for zero Hormuz dependency and parallel Saudi efforts to diversify export routes are rational responses to a threat that will not disappear with a ceasefire or memorandum of understanding that leaves Iranian capabilities intact. Friends, we know that some will argue that a weakened Iran is preferable to chaos. Regime collapse could produce refugee flows, loss of control over weapons stockpiles, or fragmented warlords. These risks are real and should not be dismissed. Yet managed containment of a coherent but unrepentant IRGC state is not a stable alternative. The 2026 war has already revealed the limits of deterrence based solely on American military presence. Gulf bases that were meant to shield the region became magnets for Iranian attacks. American interceptor stockpiles came under strain. Political will in Washington for repeated high-intensity campaigns is finite. Leaving the regime standing after this round simply defers the next confrontation to a time when Iran may have reconstituted more of its capacity and when American attention is elsewhere. Friends, Gulf states themselves have recognized the stakes. The UAE emerged as the most assertive, absorbing the heaviest attacks and pressing for outcomes that permanently reduce Iranian capacity. Saudi Arabia balanced public calls for de-escalation with private pressure and limited actions of its own. Bahrain and Kuwait experienced the vulnerability of hosting major American facilities. Qatar and Oman continued mediation roles while watching the costs mount. Differences exist among the 6 capitals, but the shared conclusion is unavoidable. An Iranian regime that claims victory through survival will treat the Gulf as a permanent pressure point. Friends, again we stress on this point that the United States and its allies must treat Iranian regime survival without decisive loss of its Gulf-threatening capabilities as an unacceptable outcome. This does not require full-scale occupation or nation-building fantasies. It requires completely sanitize Iran from IRGC forces and then sustained degradation of missile production, drone manufacturing, naval harassment capacity in the Strait, by appointing democratic government in Iran, and by commanding networks that direct them. It also requires that any diplomatic off-ramp impose verifiable, lasting constraints rather than temporary pauses that allow reconstitution. Sanctions relief or reconstruction funds that rehabilitate the regime without neutralizing IRGC and these tools would amount to rebirth of IRGC. Subsidizing the next round of attacks on Gulf cities and infrastructure. Friends, for the Gulf states, the path forward is also clear. Accelerate indigenous missile defense. Deepen intelligence and operational coordination among the GCC. Reduce physical and economic dependence on Hormuz, diversify security partnerships beyond sole reliance on Washington, and maintain full-force war on Khomeini-led IRGC forces that leave Iran unable to repeat 2026. Hedging is already underway. It must accelerate, dear friends, as we all know that the war has stripped away illusions. Iran's geography, its demonstrated willingness to strike Gulf targets, and the incentives of an IRGC-centered system mean that survival equals enduring danger. Pretending otherwise is a luxury the Gulf can no longer afford. A regime that walks away from this conflict able to threaten the Strait and launch missiles at its neighbors is not contained. It is a permanent crisis waiting for the next opportunity. Unless entire Khomeini and its IRGC forces are completely demolished, and this is the only responsible posture that will ensure that does not happen. We hope entire United States and its Gulf allies and as well the forward-looking Iranian citizens will understand our report for a better future of peace, harmony and economic development. Our thoughtful viewers, we work hard to bring important issues and topics in crisp and time-saving manner before you. So please like, share and subscribe and motivate our team and also comment your views on this important topic. Please visit our website VOPGLOBAL.org and raise your voice. Also associate with us by downloading your volunteer press card available on our website and share your views and news. Team, Digital Media, Middle East, Voice of the People International.